Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sir Jude, and here's our last video lecture for this quarter. Okay, so let's recap from our previous lesson, which was magnetic reversals, the longest and personally the most difficult topic for me to teach because of the very cerebral and cognitive nature of the lesson. Okay, so let's characterize the polarity, sign, and polar designation of the relationship between the Earth and the magnetic field. So what you see on the screen, you have planet Earth, and beside it is its magnetic field wherein it is the south pole that is oriented in the north direction, and the north pole which is oriented in the southern direction. So if that happens, then therefore this type of polarity is reverse, and the sign designated sign is negative sign, and the color designation, at least for the stripes that we use in our class, is color white. Okay, next. So because the orientation of the Earth did not change at all, only the orientation of the magnet, this time it's the normal one, no? Because it is the North Pole, it's oriented at the north direction, and the South Pole, it's oriented in the southern direction. So meaning the compass needles, or rather the magnetic field, is oriented towards north. So therefore, the sign is considered positive, and the color designation is gray. Now, this is my favorite part of magnetic reversals, the magnetic stripes. So the words that are formed from the stripes are fruitcakes. Okay? And we have five rocks labeled as letters A, B, D, G, and H. And at the middle of the rocks, we have the mid-ocean ridge. So number one, in what stripes would compass needles have pointed at the North Pole? So if the compass needles are pointed at the North Pole, so that signifies that those stripes possess normal or positive polarity. So those stripes are F, U, T, C, A, and S. For number two, in what stripes would compass needles have pointed at the South Pole? So if it is oriented at the South Pole, then therefore the stripes that we are looking for are the ones who are reverse, experiencing the reverse polarity with a negative sign. So those are R, I, A, and E. And lastly, what is the Earth's current magnetic polarity, at least in this scenario, no? So when we say current polarity, we are looking at the uh, youngest, or rather the most recent period. And you know that the youngest period in the stripes is the one at the middle or near the mid-ocean ridge. And the ones that are the nearest to the mid-ocean ridge are T and C. And since both T and C are positively oriented, then therefore, the Earth's current magnetic polarity are normal and positive. Okay, so let's talk about the age and duration of past types. So number four, all questions related to number four pertain to the stripes with normal polarity. So let's talk about the youngest stripes with normal polarity. When it comes to age, remember no that if you are near to the mid-ocean ridge, just a second, you are considered younger, or if you're exactly at the mid-ocean ridge, the stripes or the rocks are the youngest. While if you are far from the mid-ocean ridge, the stripes are oldest. Okay, so let's focus first on the stripes that are color gray because we are looking for uh because the question calls for stripes with normal polarity. So the youngest stripes with normal polarity are the ones closest to the mid-ocean ridge, and they are none other than P and C. For all the stripes with normal polarity, those are farthest from the mid-ocean ridge, and they are none other than F and S. Now, when we say shortest and longest stripes, we are looking at the thickness of the stripes. So thin stripes, short duration, while thick stripes, long duration. So the shortest stripes with normal polarity are F and S, while the longest stripes with normal polarity are U and T and C. Sorry, T and C. Now, it's time to divert our attention to the white stripes or those stripes with reverse polarity. So same rule as the ones that we did in same set of rules as the one that we used in number 4. Only this time we focus on the white stripes. So the youngest stripes with reverse polarity are I and A. The oldest stripes with reverse polarity are R and E. The shortest stripes with reverse polarity are also R and E, while the longest stripes with reverse polarity are I and E. Okay, now that we're done with the stripes, let's now focus on the rocks. So let's arrange the rocks from oldest to youngest. So the ruling for the stripes also apply for the rocks, no? Because obviously the rocks are placed on top of the stripes. All right. So as I mentioned, no, to answer this one in an easier manner, let's use a shortcut. So my shortcut version is that you transfer all the rocks in one position. Okay? And the preferred position is the left side. Because in the left side, it is clear that the arrangement is from oldest to youngest. Okay? So because of that, sorry, for a while po, let me just annotate. There you go. Okay. So let's start with letters A, B, and D. Because A and B and D are already on the left side, no need to move them anymore. Okay? So let's focus on G and H. G belongs to stripe C. And remember that because C-floor spreading occurs both ways, no? Then therefore, may mga stripes that have the same age. So C has the same age as letter D, so we can situate letter G between D and D that way. Okay? Now, for letter H, which belongs to stripe K, now stripe K has the same age as stripe letter U. So therefore, we can transfer letter H between A and B like this way. Okay, so the reason why I use this shortcut method is because if you do this way, then you can easily arrange rocks from oldest to youngest. So in a straightforward manner, it's A, H, B, G, and T. Okay, so that's all for magnetic reversals. All right. Okay, now, so we'll have a brand new lesson that is not really disconnected from magnetic reversals. I mean, magnetic reversals still connected with but in a smaller scale manner, no? But in a way that wraps our entire first quarter. So as you can see here, you have the seven continents, different colors, no? And they are separated from each other. So have you ever wondered if the seven continents you have nowadays were once joined into one supercontinent? So when I was a kid, I always wondered if these continents were connected as one supercontinent, no? And I also have the same belief as its proponent, no? Based on the continental drift theory. So the scientist who conceptualized the continental drift theory is none other than Alfred Wegener. And from the title of the theory itself, continental drift theory, it's basically means that the continents are separating, moving away from each other. So basically, this is one lesson about divergent boundary. No, but it's there's a much more complicated scenario behind that. So according to Alfred Wegener, that the seven continents were once joined in a supercontinent called Pangaea or uh, yeah. So there are two acceptable spellings for Pangea, one with two letter A's and the other one with three letters. Either way, both are considered correct. But if I were you, use the short one para hindi na madaling mag-spell. Okay? So during your performance task, your final performance task for this quarter, no? Yesterday and this morning, I asked you to cut the continents and arrange them into the supercontinent Pangea on one sheet of paper, and then answer the guide questions on the puzzle answer sheet. So I will be honest that not everybody were able to obtain the correct arrangement of the correct configuration of Pangea. So most of you were able to uh, place together at least the five continents such as South America, Africa, Antarctica, and then India when it was a continent before, and then Australia. But when it comes to North America, Eurasia, and even Greenland, no, some of you, the arrangements and the connections were not as smooth compared to the other five. Okay, but again, the way I will check your paper, it depends on which continents are placed together and if their edges fit. No? Now, so this is how Pangea separate. This is the evolution of Pangea until the current times, no? So as you can see, they started as one supercontinent, and then what's interesting about this GIF is that those continents that are placed at the north, they remain mostly at the north, except for India, which transferred very far. While most continents that were originally at the south either maintained at the south or were positioned at the middle. Okay? So before Pangea split into seven continents, the ones that we have now, it first was subdivided into two subcontinents. So those two are Laurasia, the northern Pangea, and Gondwana land, the southern Pangea. So there were two continents that were part of Laurasia before. Those are North America and Eurasia. While the remaining continents are part of Gondwanaland. Okay? Those are South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. No need to memorize because it will be irrelevant for you if you memorize this. Which continents were originally part of one subcontinent working. Okay? But what you need to know is the evolution of Pangaea to Laurasia and Gondwanaland to the seven continents that we have today. So you see three maps on the screen, A, B, and C. So let's start with question number one. Which map illustrates the current arrangement of the continents? The current arrangement of the continents today. So we have the seven. They are further separated from each other. So that's map letter C. Number two, which map illustrates Pangaea? When you say Pangaea, that's one supercontinent wherein the seven continents were connected together. That's map letter A. Number three, which map illustrates Laurasia and Gondwanaland? Obviously, that's letter B. You see the diversion between northern Pangaea and southern Pangaea. And number four, point where Laurasia and Gondwanaland are. Laurasia and Gondwanaland are both found at map letter or globe letter B. So Laurasia is northern Pangaea and Gondwanaland is the southern Pangaea. All right. Now, so if you're a fan of geological time scale or the geological history of the Earth, which we tackled before when we had 1 hour duration in each subject, but now we will not be able to cover any more due to time constraint. No? So the Earth has four major eras. We have Precambrian era or prehistoric Earth, Paleozoic era, the age of invertebrates and fishes, Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs, and Cenozoic era, the age of mammals and humans. So based on the map that you use during performance task number 5, if you look at the fossil evidence key, most of the reptiles are dinosaurs. So we have Sinognathus, we have Listrosaurus, and we have Mesosaurus. So therefore, Pangaea existed somewhere during the Mesozoic era, 251 million years ago, otherwise known as the age of dinosaurs. So there was no recorded single person ever who was able to live and exist during the Mesozoic era, because it is during the Cenozoic era wherein some species, mammals, evolved into humans. So what was it like kaya living in Pangaea? Okay, so according to the Washington Post article titled On Ancient Supercontinent Pangaea, The Summer Were Sizzlers by William Booth on May 28, 1989. So instead of a lukewarm world, large expanses of Pangaea may have been an uninhabitable wasteland. So when we say uninhabitable, that's unsafe. So why is it considered unsafe? Because the climate is too arid and too hot or too cold to support much life during part of the year. So the extreme temperatures made it unfavorable for species back then to live. And assuming that human beings lived back then therefore we would have been extinct nowadays. And another reason why is because of the last highlighted sentence. Where life could thrive, it was dominated by primitive non-flowering plants and large, squat amphibians and early reptiles. So considering that we would have been residing with dinosaurs back then therefore we would have acted as the food or the prey for dinosaurs. Okay, so not only that we have to deal with large and gigantic, colossal mammoth animals before, but we also have to deal with extreme temperatures. Now, the most important part of the continental drift theory are the clues or evidence that Alfred Wegener used to arrange the seven continents into Pangaea. So what clues or evidence did Alfred Wegener utilize in his conceptualization of the continental drift theory? Let's start with the basic one. Okay? So as you can see, the shape or rather the edges of the continents, if you place them from one continent to another, it seems like they fit like a puzzle. So the first clue or evidence is the jigsaw puzzle continent fit. They fit like a puzzle together, specifically South America and Africa. No, sila talaga yung perfect example of puzzle pieces literally conjoined together. Not exactly shaped like the puzzle toy that we play, but you know what I mean when it comes to the edges. They fit together. They fit seamlessly. Okay, so that's the first clue, jigsaw puzzle continent fifth. Second clue, when you're dealing with bones, remains, and even the footprints of dead species, we're talking about the fossils. So this fossil evidence key was also found at the map that you used during performance task 1.5. So it is obvious that the second clue is the fossil distribution. So if we look at this map, no, this map indicates to you that the locations where the four species during the Mesozoic era were found. So in the red circle, we have Cynognathus, a Triassic land reptile. On the yellow circle, we have a freshwater reptile called Mesosaurus. On the green circle, we have also a Triassic land reptile, Lystrosaurus. And last but not the least, the one with the blue circle is obviously not a dinosaur, but the fossils of the fern, Glossopteris. So let's look at them one by one. These five continents, South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia, nowadays they're separated from each other. But Wegener and some of the researchers and the scientists that came after him and even probably before him, no, they were able to locate species of some animals in some continents. So let's start with Cynognathus. Cynognathus's remains were found at South America and Africa only. For Mesosaurus, also at South America and Africa. On Lystrosaurus, we have Africa, India, and Antarctica. And the Glossopteris fern, no, is very diverse because it was found on South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. So what did the fossil distribution tell us about the location of these continents? So let's say, for example, Cynognathus. If we have dinosaurs today, and knowing that South America and Africa are now disconnected from each other, it would have been impossible for that dinosaur to move from one continent to another. So that indicates that South America and Africa, when it comes to the context to where Cyanothnathus remains were found, no, then these two continents, again, South America and Africa, they were believed to have been conjoined, connected together before. And the same is also true for the other three continents. Okay, let's move on to the third clue. So uh the the only object in the list that is not considered a fossil is the Alpine Mountains. And because it is a mountain, then the third clue refers to geological distribution. All right. So what is we have four continents here. We have in country. So we have North America, Greenland, Europe, and Africa. Not all parts of the continent were represented, only the ones containing the North Atlantic Appalachian domain, which is represented by yellow highlights or yellow streaks. No? So what can you say about the distribution of the North Atlantic Appalachian domain in these areas? So this indicates that these four areas were once connected together because it would have been impossible for one part of the mountain to be found in another region of a mountain. Obviously, it is a non-living thing. It wouldn't be able to move on its own. And the presence of the soil samples, rocks, minerals prove, or rather, support the idea that these areas were connected. Okay, so next, also here we have the dark areas found on South America and Africa. These are matching ancient rock assemblages, no? Supporting the evidence that South America and Africa probably were connected before, just like any other continents. All right. So the last clue or evidence used by Alfred Wegener something to do with ice, or when it's in a mountain form, we call them glacier. So the final clue is the glacial or ice deposits. Okay, so ice is normally colorless or white, but in this diagram, the ice or glacier deposits 300 million years ago were represented by color white or the white region. So once again, we're dealing with Gondwana land here. We have South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia. So nowadays, the only continent here that probably contains a lot of ice or glaciers is Antarctica. But before 300 million years ago, these five continents were there were evidence of glacial and ice deposits among them, suggesting that these five were connected. Because no, South America or some regions in South America, Africa, India, no, they're near the equator nowadays, so probably experience tropical climate. Unlike Antarctica, which is located near the South Pole. Now, so, given our previous lessons, what factors led to the separation of Pangaea? So, the reason why we had continental drift theory as our last lesson is because all the lessons that we tackled before, especially from seismic waves down to the previous one, magnetic reversals, no, they in one way or another, they led to the separation of Pangaea. This is this is one of the reasons why the continental drift theory is not yet a law. Because Alfred Wegener failed to establish the rationale behind the separation of Pangaea. And the previous lessons probably tell us why. Okay? So in simplest terms, everything starts because the core is hot. And when the core is hot, that triggers convection currents. And when you have convection currents that will provoke ridge push or the oceanic divergence, also known as the formation of mid-ocean wavelets. And of course, to conserve the subducting crust, you have the slab pool. And given the continuous movements, remember, no Mesozoic era, not the Earth was not in its infancy during that time, but the Earth was considered unstable compared nowadays. Highly unstable before compared nowadays, which is it's still unstable because there's still earthquake and volcanic activities, but less extreme compared to the ancient eras. So, given these movements, it may have probably led to several plate boundaries, whether convergent, divergent, or transform, which are manifested by natural disasters like earthquakes, landslides, and even tsunamis. So that these probably triggered the Pangea to separate nowadays into seven continents. Okay? So before we end, let's list the four clues Alfred Wegener utilized in his conceptualization of the continental drift theory. So some of you might be tempted to answer the four legends listed at the bottom left of the picture, but let's analyze them one by one. So using the five continents under Gondwana land, no, they fit together like a puzzle. So the first one is the jigsaw puzzle continent fit. Then number two, we have two dinosaur fossils, Listosaurus and Glossopteryx. So we have fossil distribution. And then number three, we have Gondwana mountain belt. So that's geological distribution. And number four, the presence of ice cap 300 million years ago, that's glacial or ice deposits. All right. So some questions for you before we end. So do you think the seven continents will be separated in the future? If yes, why? If not, how come not? When it comes to these questions, because this falls under speculation, no, there are no right or wrong answers here. All your answers will be valid. So I'm excited to know what's your answer here. No? And then number two, if you think the continents would be further separated, where do you want the Philippines to be ideally situated next to and why? Okay? So do you want Philippines to be located near the North Pole or the South Pole so that we wouldn't be able to experience extreme heat, especially during summers? Do you want it to be next to your favorite country, such as Korea or Japan or Thailand? Or do you want it to be somewhere else near America or Mediterranean area? So use your imagination. Sky's the limit. All right. So that concludes all our lessons in first quarter. We will review the coverage of the long test 1.4 topics from convection currents down to continental drift theory tomorrow because the coverage is too long compared to the previous long tests. Till then, I am Sir Jude and see you tomorrow.